Just a few weeks ago, the government of Burma expelled Doctors Without Borders from the country, thus denying once again the most basic of human rights. The government of Burma cannot claim progress towards meeting its reform goals if it does not improve the treatment of Rohingya Muslims and other minority groups. The United States must prioritize the protection of human rights in its engagement with Burma. I urge the State Department to take off the rose-colored glasses and recognize that progress in Burma is indeed very limited in this regard. The bipartisan resolution offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, calls on the government of Burma to immediately end the state-sponsored persecution of the Rohingya Muslim people. I am a co-sponsor of this resolution. We cannot embrace diplomatic reconciliation with the government of Burma while human rights conditions in that country have deteriorated. I am pleased to offer a bipartisan amendment in the nature of a substitute, along with my good friend, Ranking Member Engel, Chairman Steve Shabbat of the Asia Subcommittee, and Representative Gabbard of Hawaii, who is also a sponsor and a member of the Asia Subcommittee. This amendment strengthens the underlying resolution by clarifying the legal status of the Rohingya Muslim people under the 1982 Citizenship Law. It brings the resolution up to date by including information regarding the murder of 48 Rohingya earlier this year and the expulsion of Doctors Without Borders. The amendment is further amended with language calling on the government of Burma to immediately recognize the Rohingya as an ethnic minority and to grant them citizenship. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. I will now turn to the ranking member to speak on the en bloc measures, and then we will turn to the gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly support both measures. The HRES 418, a resolution introduced, as you mentioned, by Mr. McGovern, the co-chairman of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. Legislation calls on the government of Burma to end the persecution of the Rohingya people and to respect the rights of all minority groups in Burma. The plight of the Rohingya gets very little attention, and I'm pleased that the committee is addressing the abuses they and other minorities have suffered in Burma. And let me quote something. According to the State Department's 2013 country reports on human rights practices, there were, and I quote, credible reports of extrajudicial killings, rape and sexual violence, arbitrary detentions, and torture and mistreatment in detention, deaths in custody, and systematic denial of due process and fair trial rights overwhelmingly perpetrated against the Rohingya. This is a unquote quote from the State Department's 2013 country reports on human rights practices. As the government of Burma transitions from decades-long military rule to a civilian government, it's important to hold them accountable for persistent human rights abuses. The killings, arbitrary detentions, and destruction of homes have caused 140,000 people to be internally displaced, and hundreds of thousands have been forced to flee to neighboring countries, including Thailand, Bangladesh, and Malaysia. If Burma truly seeks to rejoin the international community, then it must abide by the human rights principles of equality and human dignity. I support this resolution and encourage our colleagues to support it as well. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this markup, and I want to thank you again for working with us in a bipartisan way to move these important resolutions forward. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. We recognize Ms. Ross-Leitonen for such time as she might consume.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We must stand up for all people who are being suppressed by authoritarian regimes. House Resolution 418 calls for an end to the persecution of Muslim minorities and respect internationally recognized human rights for all ethnic and religious minority groups. The Muslim minority continues to suffer under the current regime. The continued prosecution and discrimination, as well as the brutal attacks against this minority, must stop. And I hope that this resolution will help protect the fundamental rights of all ethnic and religious minorities. Thank you so much for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other members seeking recognition? Hearing none, the question occurs on agreeing to the measures considered en bloc. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the en bloc items are agreed to. And without objection, House Resolution 418 as amended and House Resolution 494 as amended are each ordered favorably reported as a single amendment in the nature of a substitute. The staff is directed to make any technical and conforming changes. And that concludes our business for today. I want to thank Ranking Member Engel and all of the committee members for their contribution and assistance with today's markup, and this committee stands adjourned.